When a cold has you down, it's the little comforts that lift you up. A warm blanket, a cup of tea, and a tissue that actually feels good on your skin. Infused with aloe, Kleenex Cooling Plus Aloe provides a hint of cooling freshness to help your skin feel restored. So whether your skin is feeling dry, chafed, or irritated, you're only one wipe away from helping it feel relieved. The next time you have a cold, get a hint of instant cooling relief with new Kleenex Cooling Plus Aloe. For whatever happens next, grab Kleenex.
Looking for these better days.
It is Friday, September 19th. I'm Scott Seidenberg. Here's what you need to know to make today a better day. It is part 2 of our Football Friday episodes, and joining me to talk some college football on this edition of Better Day, presented by FanDuel, he is AJ Hoffman, making his return to the Better Day podcast. AJ, what's up, man? How are you feeling about this weekend in college football?
I'm feeling good, man. It's last weekend before we get into the full slate of conference action for the most part. So our last slate of SEC team versus FCS team. So it'll be good to get that stuff out of the way at least for a good while and get into some more competitive matchups. So I'm excited, man. And there are a couple of good conference games this week. Like the Big 12 has a couple of good games. Big 10 has a couple of good games. So it should be a fun week.
And for those of you that might be watching any video clips that are posted, AJ is completely decked out in Bills Mafia.
Go Bills, baby.
Right,
got a good big dubs last night. Big dubs.
He is so Bills Mafia right now. All right, let's get to some top 25 college football games, and let's start with the early one, the Fox Big Noon kickoff, which is really a big 10 a.m. kickoff because the game is being played in Salt Lake City, Utah, where it's number 17 Texas Tech at number 16 Utah. Up on the FanDuel Sportsbook right now, Utah's a 3.5-point favorite, AJ. Now, I will stress that shop around, try and get the best of the number. This is one where I hate to be that guy. I played Utah at -3. I would still play Utah at -3 if you were able to get it. The way that I looked at this matchup, it's hard not to be so impressed with what Utah has done to start this season. And, maybe the win over UCLA is not as impressive as we thought because UCLA is just absolutely terrible right now. But you look at the advanced metrics, the EPA per play, the success percentage. I mean, Utah's they rank off the charts in every measurable that you look at when you measure a football team.
Yeah, and both these teams, like you can argue, strength of schedule has been bad, but you'd make the same argument against Texas Tech. Like neither one of these teams have played a team with a pulse. So that's first of all, that's the most intriguing thing about this matchup. But generally, and I'm with you. I got this at -3 as well. I did like Utah there. At 3.5, it's probably a pass for me. I have a lot of respect for what Texas Tech is doing so far, and we know that Texas Tech invested a lot in this program in the offseason. And again, against lesser than great competition, it's looked like it's working so far. But there's until it doesn't work, it's hard to say that it's not going to. I do think going on the road, this is the first time all season there won't be a bunch of tortillas flying around. And Kyle Whittingham is really especially when he's had a viable quarterback, has been a monster, both straight up and against the spread at home. So I think this is a tough ask for Texas Tech. Generally, I think that these teams are about even. This is a really great matchup, though, between the winner of this game. You can almost lock into the Big 12 championship game, which means the winner of this game is probably going to be playing for a spot in the college football playoff. And the stakes are high, which means the margins are small. I expect both teams to try and play as tight a game as possible, make as few mistakes as possible. I just trust the home team a little bit more, and I trust Kyle Whittingham a little bit more, quite frankly. So I would back the Utes. I wouldn't back them at 3.5. It's a pure pass for me at 3.5. But at 3, I'll be there with you on Utah.
It feels like you're right. Back Kyle Whittingham, back them at home. We know Utah's been incredible at home under Kyle Whittingham, so it just feels like this is the spot where if this game was in Lubbock, I might feel differently. But and does the early start time affect them because it's 10 a.m.? The 10 a.m. kickoff here, maybe.
That's an hour before they kick off in Texas, so I don't think that's a big deal. But
Well, for
And
Utah though, for the kids in Utah, they're used to playing the night games
that's
usually.
true. But that's going to be life for them in the Big 12 now. There's going to be a lot of
Yeah.
these early kicks. The other thing is, a lot elevation is usually a big factor in these games for Utah. That's a big part of their home field advantage. It, Lubbock, you wouldn't think of it as a place that has elevation, but it's over 3,000 feet above sea level. Like this isn't Houston going out to Utah. This is a team that they're going to be okay with the elevation. This is really probably the most intriguing matchup of the weekend for me.
So Kyle Whittingham as a head coach, as a home favorite, 54-47 ATS. So it's only
Yeah.
53.5%.
Okay.
Straight up though, 87-15 straight up.
Yeah, that's strong. And when you're like I said, margins are small this week. That's why that's why the 3.5 to me is so important. If I feel like if they lose by a field goal and I go home and I don't lose anything, that's one of the times I'll be satisfied with that result.
Since the start of the 2021 season, so post-COVID, new reality, new world,
Cam
21
Rising
and
era, we
2.
call that.
21-2 straight up,
Oh, that's
and
incredible.
14-9 against the spread as a home favorite. I mean, they've just been so good. They've
Yeah.
just been so good. In the last 2 years, 9-2 straight up. Yeah, only 6-5 ATS though, but
Well, that's good. Yeah,
it is a
last year,
tough
remember,
place
he
to
didn't
play.
have a quarterback, and a lot of those negative results
That's
came
true.
last year when
That's
they
true.
just didn't
Yeah.
have an option. And so far, Devin Dampier looks like the real deal, man.
Yeah.
He's not much as far as like an NFL prospect because I feel like he's like 5'6". But man, he's been a real problem for opponents so far. I like what I've seen out of him.
All right, we're going to skip the games that have the 30-point spreads. We're not going to get into those, but let's talk about the other top 25 matchup that we have. This one is the 3:30 Eastern time afternoon kickoff on ABC. Number 22 Auburn is at number 11 Oklahoma. Oklahoma up on the FanDuel Sportsbook right now, 6.5-point favorites, total of 46.5. And this would be a buy on Oklahoma if you get less than a touchdown. Now, on the BetUS TV show earlier this week, AJ, this was one of my best bets. I did give out Oklahoma -6.5. I love this Sooners team. I love this Sooners defense. I know people are saying Jackson Arnold revenge game. He's gonna come into Stillwater and he's or not Stillwater. He's gonna come into Norman and he's gonna he's returning there. Don't you think Brent Venables knows what to do against Jackson Arnold?
Yeah, he knows what this guy's weaknesses are. He knows what his strengths are. He knows how to attack him. I'm with you. Anything under a touchdown is certainly a buy on Oklahoma. And also the other thing to consider is Auburn's got a lot of issues right now, injury wise, particularly on defense. So I feel like they're going to be vulnerable. And you're right about Oklahoma. I was wrong about where Oklahoma's at. Last year felt like Oklahoma had there was a real risk of them turning into like the SEC version of Nebraska, like where they were a juggernaut in the Big 12, and then when they made the move, they became just a mid-level program. And I could have seen that happening to Oklahoma, not just like for a year. I could have seen that slipping away from them and then becoming that for the foreseeable future. It looks like that's not going to be the case. It looks like Oklahoma's kind of riding the ship and looks like they're at least going to be a serious contender in the SEC. They're year in and year out. But I've been really impressed with what I've seen out of them. And not to say that Jackson Arnold's not good. Jackson Arnold, I think, has been very good, so far this season.
Especially running the ball.
Much better than he was at Oklahoma. That's been a positive move for him. But John Mateer has been better. And when you factor in, the fact that Mateer's also been running the football well, and then the defense right now for Oklahoma is just on a different level than what Auburn is, it's hard for me to go any other way. I'm with you, Oklahoma, anything under a touchdown.
So this is what's been impressive about the quarterbacks, especially John Mateer. I looked up how both of them have performed, John Mateer and Jackson Arnold, how they performed under pressure. So if you go to PFF has great stats, and you can look at how these quarterbacks have handled pressure this season, because I do think both of these defenses, they have done a good job of getting after the quarterback. I think that's going to be an important factor here in this game. In 28 dropbacks facing pressure this year, John Mateer has a PFF grade of 90.3. That is the second highest grade in the country. He's made 3 big time throws, and this is the best part, 0 turnover worthy plays. Of the 91 quarterbacks to face at least 20 dropbacks of pressure this season, John Mateer has the 8th highest quarterback rating at 108.2. On the flip side, Jackson Arnold has faced 19 dropbacks of pressure. He has a passing grade of 27, 0 big time throws, 2 turnover worthy plays, and a QBR of 56.8.
I'm guessing that's
If
not the
Brent
third
Venables
highest.
that's not. No. That's yeah. If Brent Venables in this defense can get after the quarterback, which I believe they can because they are number 1 in the country in defensive success against the pass, I believe that Arnold will turn the ball over, and I think it could get ugly here for Auburn. So
I agree.
Oklahoma is one of my best bets.
And I think that the only thing I've seen out of Oklahoma that I don't love so far is all the big plays Mateer's making. He has been a little loose with the ball. Like I do think if he can avoid making big mistakes, this Oklahoma team has a really high ceiling. And if he doesn't turn the ball over, I think this might be like a double-digit win, like a blowout win for Oklahoma.
Wow.
So I'm with you on Oklahoma this week.
All right, let's talk about Tulane at number 13, Ole Miss. Ole Miss, a 12.5-point favorite, total 61.5. And I feel like last week's performance by Trinidad Chambliss has to make you feel like so much more confident in this Ole Miss team because now it's I don't care who's at quarterback. This offense is going to produce. And am I crazy for thinking? I know it's one game, but am I crazy for thinking Trinidad was better in this offense than what we saw from Austin Simmons so far?
Yeah, and what's funny, everything I'm hearing is Austin Simmons might play, and it's all
Yeah,
very strange
yeah.
to me, especially with what Ole Miss's upcoming schedule is. I'm surprised they're not just saying, "Hey, you take it easy this week." But part of it could be because I think Ole Miss realizes their margin for error is pretty small. Despite the offense looking really good, they're not able to get margin in these games because they're giving it up as well. So they probably realize, man, we're going to need every point that we can score. Lane Kiffin's one of these guys, much like James Franklin, who knows the spread, and he tries to make sure his boosters and his supporters get to the window. And it's been a tough sledding this season so far, and that's why I kind of feels like this number might be a little bit big. I think Tulane is better than people think they are. I think they're going to have some offensive success. I think this is an over game. I mean, I do think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game, but I think 13.5 points. You start letting them get around that 2 touchdowns. They're absolutely capable of hanging with this Ole Miss defense that has not looked very good so far, and they haven't played against the best teams on their schedule yet either. There's a lot tougher teams coming for Ole Miss, and again, look at their future schedule. This is for the SEC. This is sort of where the SEC plays their gimme week before they get into conference play, and I don't think this is a gimme for Ole Miss, who is about to get into Murderer's Row. So I think if you like Ole Miss, I would probably try to play the first half. I think you'll see a lot of good stuff out of Lane Kiffin, like if he's going to try and get out to a big lead. But I could see him certainly, playing it safe in the second half, just trying to run some clock and get out of here. And again, I don't know what the quarterback situation is. I don't know who's going to play exactly. But all of that stuff tells me I kind of want to be on Tulane here as a dog.
Okay. Yeah, I lean towards the over. I don't have a play on the side here. I just love betting Ole Miss team total to go over.
It's usually a smart play.
I love their offense. Like chunk play after chunk play after chunk play is just incredible. But you mentioned the defense, not exactly reliable so far this season. And Tulane has been better. We have seen them certainly be able to score. All right, let's talk about number 21, Michigan at Nebraska.
It's
and right
corn.
now, Michigan. I've never seen such a beautiful thing. Michigan, a 1.5-point favorite on the road. It's important to note that this is another game where Michigan head coach Sharon Moore is not coaching. Biff Poggi, who was wearing pants and sleeves on the sideline last week, believe it or not. He's turning into a real Michigan man, as they say,
Oh, yeah.
AJ. He is going to coach once again. The difference, though, between this week and last week was last week, Sharon Moore was able to coach the team during practice. His suspension kicked in on Saturday, meaning he cannot coach them. So he has not been with the team this week. So last week, that's okay when you're preparing for, I'm sure they did some install last week to prepare for this game. But now this week, it's all about the position coaches that are running their individual units, no head coach. Last week's performance, Biff Poggi said, was a love letter to Sharon Moore, the blowout victory. Can they do it again on the road here against an upstart team in Nebraska and a quarterback in Dylan Raiola who is completing a very high percentage of his throws? Say what you will about the kid, and maybe it's because the A.dot's low and he's not throwing the ball down the field, but he's still completing a very high percentage of his throws, so that's good for sustaining offense.
Yeah, it is death by 1,000, needle pricks, it seems like, with Nebraska, but these are the games that I like Matt Rule in. These are the games like where you're an underdog, and the problem is, Nebraska's like 0 for their last 27 against top 25 opponents. Nebraska just they stink against anybody with a pulse. But I'm not crazy about this Michigan team either. I think Underwood's great. Don't get me wrong, but I think the guys around him just aren't at the level that we've come to expect from the Harbaugh Michigan days. I'm not sure how Raiola looks in his first big test this year, because they've also had a pretty weak strength of schedule so far. Nebraska has, but I do lean to Corn getting the job done in this game. I feel like you're right. The game planning, having Sharon Moore around for the week to lead up to last week was a huge deal for them. Not having that, I do expect it to be a little bit different. And I agree, they probably did some install for this, knowing it was the bigger game. But no, I don't expect them to look as crisp. And I just think Underwood being on the road, this is a tough place to go play. So I'll take the points with Corn here this week.
Would you sprinkle on the money line? It's only
you're probably not going to get much of a boost, but yeah. If I'm playing 2.5, I'll play the money line. Yeah.
South Carolina at number 23, Missouri, and we have seen movement on this spread because of the quarterback situation for South Carolina. Mizzou is a 9.5-point favorite here at home. Earlier in the week, they were upwards of 11 with the uncertainty of Lenora Sellers' availability. Now we're hearing reports that Lenora Sellers is probably going to play this weekend. And
how good is Lenora Sellers?
There's a couple things I want to get into. One, I think this is complete coaching malpractice having Lenora Sellers play this week. All right. With all due respect to Shane Beamer, the kid got a concussion this weekend. And I know that the NFL and their concussion protocol is so much different than college football, because in college football, we don't report injuries. College football is like the NHL when it comes to injuries.
Upper body.
Where the guy literally fractures his femur, and the report just says, hey, he's questionable with a lower body thing. Yeah. It's like, what? What do you mean? Questionable lower body injury?
Could be a broken leg, yeah.
Yeah, the guy's leg snapped in half, and you're telling me, hey, lower body injury. He's questionable. Maybe. But in the NFL, I think it was last year was like the first time. It was Brock Purdy, and he was like the first quarterback that suffered a concussion in the prior week's game and progressed through the NFL's concussion protocol and played the following week. It had never happened before. No quarterback had ever played the week getting a concussion because they weren't able to progress through the protocol, and Brock Purdy became the first one to do it. I think it was last year. Maybe last year or the year before. I think it was last year. For Sellers to suffer a concussion, whether they're lying about it or not, on Saturday, and then to play this Saturday, I think is coaching malpractice. Now, you asked the other question. How good is Lenora Sellers? A lot of people came into this season with having him as their dark horse Heisman candidate.
Uh-huh.
I haven't seen it.
No.
Have you seen it? I haven't seen it.
No.
Has anyone seen it?
No.
So now all of a sudden I'm supposed to believe that this kid coming back is going to make this offense move? Here's some numbers, because this was one of my best bets on the show earlier this week, and it was on the South Carolina team total to go under. At the time, it was 17.5. Now that total is up to 19.5 because of, the seller stuff. I think that's a good number to play the under because even with Luke Doty at quarterback, who's a wide receiver, but the kid at Luke Doty played quarterback last week. In the second half, they averaged 4.5 yards per play. If that was their rank for the entire season, it would be 125th in the nation in yards per play. But AJ, over the entire season, even with Lenore Stellers at quarterback, they're only averaging 5.19 yards per play. That's 106th in the country. So as you said, how good is Lenore Stellers? How good is this offense? Missouri's defense is legit. And they have the 5th best third down defense in the country. They've allowed the 5th fewest yards per play in the country. I don't think South Carolina scores on them. I think whether it's Sellers or Dottie, my bet is the team total to go under for South Carolina.
I don't disagree with that. I do like that the number has gone towards South Carolina because it just gives me more on like, or makes me feel better about Mizzou. I think Mizzou is the side here. I think that the idea that he is going to play with a concussion, particularly because, when you think about Lenore Sellers, like, I think of a guy who can beat you with his legs.
Yeah.
Is he going to be as aggressive running the football, knowing that he's got a brain injury? My guess is probably
one
not.
hit away, right?
So
and you don't know if the coaches are telling him not to run. If they're telling him, hey, you got to protect yourself, you got to, you got to slide, or you got to go out of bounds. Like, we don't want you to run. You don't know if that's a part of the game plan this week.
You're a Jets fan. Let's say the Jets decided we're going to play Justin Fields, but Justin, we don't want you to run at all, just to protect your head. How good would you feel about the Jets this week? You know what I mean?
I mean, you might as well like start a quarterback and tell him to throw with his other hand.
Right. So, I mean, I don't understand the love for Lenora Sellers. It's clear that we've made some adjustments on a lot of guys. I think we now realize Cade Klubnik isn't what we thought Cade Klubnik was coming into the season. Arch Manning, DJ Lagway. There's a lot of guys that were on a lot of preseason Heisman lists who don't look the part, and we've all accepted that. But for whatever reason, Lenore Sellers feels like he's immune from criticism because I've seen nothing about him that says, yeah, this guy is living up to the hype. Doesn't feel that way to me. So, no, and I guess maybe if the other option is having a wide receiver play quarterback, I understand there being a drop off in the line, but I just don't understand how they're going to prep all week. If they don't prep for him to play, or if they don't prep with him running the team, and I don't know how he's good enough to beat this Mizzou defense. And if they do, there's still a very high probability that I think he could not finish the game, and that means less reps for someone else. So I just think there's a lot of arrows pointing at Missouri in this game.
Yeah. So let's talk about now Florida at number 4, Miami. You mentioned DJ Lagway is a guy that certainly the opinions have changed on. Miami, an 8.5 point favorite. Does Florida bounce back at all? I mean, Florida feels like a team for me where I have to see it before I believe it, and I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's tough, man, because I did see a lot of things I liked out of Florida last week. They made, speaking of guys who had a lot of preseason hype, they made Garrett Nussmeier look like just a guy. Like he was lost out there. DJ Lagway giving the ball away 40 times made it impossible for them to capitalize. And it's funny that when you think about how we'd feel about Florida, had Florida not had a player spit on someone and lost that game to South Florida, and then had DJ Lagway only thrown 3 picks against LSU, and they had a real chance of winning that game. If they were 3-0 with a win over South Florida and a win over LSU, there's no way we'd be catching 8.5 points against Miami. But at the same time, man, it's hard to feel great about the vibes in Gainesville right now. And I will say they didn't look like they quit last week, and they very well could have quit. Your quarterback throws 100 picks. It's easy to just throw in the towel. It didn't seem like they did that. They're still playing hard for Napier. But I just think Miami is operating on a different level right now. I agree with the line move. I think that Beck is just going to have his way with this secondary. Like Florida, for whatever you say about Florida, and I do think Florida's pretty good defensively. They haven't been great at getting a pass rush, and if you give Beck time to just sit back there, I think he's going to pick you apart. And I think that's what he does in this game. So I think Miami probably wins this game by 10 points. And I think we're going to be probably having the same conversation next week. I think Florida play Texas next. I think we'll be having a conversation about, man, are they really as bad as their record says they are? And the answer is probably going to be no. And we knew that coming into this season that Florida had the toughest schedule in college football. We knew it was going to be just murderer's row for them. This is the results of that. Now, that the South Florida loss looks so bad on paper. They didn't play poorly in that game. The LSU game, they didn't play poorly outside of DJ Lagway, and I know he's going to be the guy out there again. I assume they're gonna do something to have him protect the ball a little bit better. I really wanted to play Florida in this spot, but I just can't. I can't, knowing that Miami just has so many offensive weapons right now, and they seem to be firing on all cylinders. So it's Miami or nothing for me.
One final top 25 matchup here. Number 9, Illinois at number 19, Indiana. Indiana, a 6.5-point favorite. I took it with the dog, AJ, and I think this might be my favorite money line sprinkle of the week. I think Illinois can go in there and win this game outright. I trust Luke Altmaier. I do. I really do. The kid hasn't turned the football over this season, and that's huge. I gave out the under pressure numbers earlier with John Mateer. I mean, Altmaier, he doesn't grade off the charts against pressure, and that's, the pressure numbers are important because Indiana leads the nation in tackles for loss, right? So you know that they're going to get into the backfield. But Altmaier, he hasn't had any big-time throws, but he hasn't had any turnover-worthy plays. He has 8 first, and this is what really stood out to me when I was doing my research on Altmaier. 8 first downs converted under pressure. That's the 8th most in the nation. But those 8 came on only 28 dropbacks against pressure. So his percentage of converting a first down under pressure is one of the highest in the nation. And so if Indiana tries to bring the blitz on a third down or so, if Indiana tries to create pressure on a third down or so, there's going to be a time where Luke Altmaier is going to complete a pass that's going to get them a first down in a key situation here. This is one of the biggest games that it can't be understated, because the winner of this game is probably going to be in the running for a college football playoff spot. And not probably, maybe most likely in the running for a college football playoff spot. Remember before the season, we talked and I asked everybody the same question: over under 3.5 Big Ten teams in the college football playoff. And naturally the belief was, well, you're going to get Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon. Those are the 3 teams that are going to be in. The question is that it, or do you get a 4th team? Now, Indiana has been, okay. Could they repeat what they did last year? Maybe. But the answer that I heard from the majority of people that I asked was that Illinois was going to be that 4th team this year. And this is the game where it comes down to.
Yeah.
The winner of this game could make it.
I think as the numbers push towards Indiana, I'm much less interested in playing them and more to your side. But generally, I like Indiana. You mentioned, liking Altmaier, which I do, but I trust Kurt Cignetti a lot more than I trust Brett Bielema. And
that's a good point.
I think one thing that Kurt Cignetti does is, if he is equal or greater than you, he will do everything he can to humiliate you. Now, he has a heart, and I mean, look no further than Indiana State last week. There was no reason to do what he did to Indiana State, and he blew their doors off. I mean, they were running it up late. It was just, he chooses violence, and he's done this now. He did it all last season. If he's got a chance to do it, he will do it. And I was not a huge Illinois believer coming into the season. Like, I thought they were overranked coming into the season. I think that they're good, but now we're talking about them as a top 10 football team. I don't know that they're that. I think the line is pushed the right way. And if I were looking to be an Illinois guy, I'd want 6.5. I might even wait for a 7 if I'm an Illinois guy, because you might actually get that on Saturday. But yeah, I do not like betting against Kurt Signetti unless the talent on the other side is clearly better than his. And you go back to last year and the times when they lost, it was the Jimmies and Joes were just too much. I don't think that's the case with Illinois. I think these teams are probably, from a talent standpoint, about even. And just having that faith in a coach that I know knows the number and wants to go out there and embarrass you. And, Indiana and Illinois, these are schools that fight for the same kids. They're not getting the kids that Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State get. They're fighting for that B tier Big Ten kid. And, like I said, he went out and pulled Indiana State's pants down last week for no good reason. What do you think he's going to do to a team that he's actually, going after the same players with? So I'm gonna lean to Indiana State under a touchdown. If it gets to a 7, I could probably see making a play on Illinois. But I'm probably just going to be neutral on this game and see what Signetti does. I just have so much respect for that dude, what he's done just to turn this program into a team that we're talking about. Indiana football, most of our lives has been just a laughing stock. And the fact that, we're talking about Indiana playing big games it's all because of what Kurt Signetti's done. So I'm not looking to fade that thing.
All right. Well, I'm like I said, I'm on the dog here. And I wouldn't be surprised if Illinois pulls an upset. I think this game is a lot closer than the spread thinks. I think this is a field goal game. I think it comes down to who has the football last.
I think
the more points you give me, the
I think you're right. I think if I were playing this game, if I wanted to be on Illinois, if I don't get 7, I'd rather just play the money line. I think if they're not going to get blown out, I think that they probably win the game. I don't think Indiana never wins these games by 3 points. Yeah. Indiana either beats the shit out of you or they lose. So I think, if you're playing the dog, I think you probably half your bet should be on the money line.
All right. One bonus bet. Now that we are done with the top 25, do you have a bonus best bet for a team not ranked in the top 25? Any game.
Yeah. For a team not ranked in the top 25.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'll give you one. I'm on James Madison -8 against Liberty.
Yeah, I played James Madison early, and I got clearly a dreadful number. The market
is 9.5.
The market
you laid 9.5.
I laid 10.5. The market's clearly against us, and I don't really know why. I don't know why. Yeah, I like the situation there for them, and I don't think Liberty's very good. I haven't seen anything that makes me like Liberty, so that's one I would agree with you on. I'll tell you, I'll give you a play. Kansas. I think Kansas just goes in and wrecks this West Virginia team. I think Kansas is a lot better than anybody thought they were going to be, myself included. And West Virginia just doesn't seem to have anything going for them. They're going to try to run the ball. Kansas has been great against the run. You got Leipold with a week to prepare for this guy now. I don't think there's any reason to have a lot of faith in what Rich Rod's doing out there in West Virginia. I think Kansas could absolutely obliterate this West Virginia team. So outside the top 25, that's probably my favorite play.
Kansas right now, 12.5-point favorites up on the FanDuel Sportsbook. There he is. He's AJ Hoffman. You can follow him on Twitter at AJ is the Real. Check out his show Monday through Friday on the San Antonio Sports Star. Go to AJ's Twitter account. You'll find links, video clips, all that stuff. I saw an interview with Mike Elko, Texas A&M head coach this past week. Good stuff there with the Aggies head coach coming off a massive win. So you definitely want to check that out. You college football fans, again, go to AJ is the Real on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at Scott's On Air. And here's hoping you make today and every day a better day.